Welcome to this week's Eagle Podcast. My name's Edie, and I've been homeschooling for 15 years, and I'm joined this week with...
Marann. I've been homeschooling for 21 years.
Wow. I've had two children go from K through 12 homeschooling, and Marann, you've had...
3. Seen from preschool to high school.
Wow. And this week we're discussing some wonderful resources we used to help our kids get out and get socialized, which was last week's topic. Of course, that was a topic that we discussed in detail last week that you can find on our website and our YouTube channel, just really going through the myths about homeschoolers not being socialized and how they have a hard time finding enough time at home. But this week, we'd like to address from the very early ages how we got our kids out and socially adjusted and just had a great time doing it, I think.
Yeah. Thanks, Edie. I'd like to start off by saying we know both from research and various data that children who are homeschooled are well socialized, and many of our children have a very large variety of network in the social calendar. Homeschooling generally has a positive impact on social skills. Our children are not subject to peer pressure, violence, drugs, and other negative influences that are so very common in today's society, in the school system as well. The children do not have to waste energy and tears on being bullied. Yes, everyone at some point needs to deal with unpleasant people and situations, but for that experience to become a positive opportunity for character building, a child must be developed mentally ready in order to come to that exposure. So one of the things we enjoy doing in terms of socializing and finding resources for our children were to sports in a different sort of way. Homeschool PE.
That was fun. That class we had our kids in together, where the local Y, where we live in a rural setting, sponsored homeschool PE class. And the age range was from 5 to 15, probably.
Yes. And you could be right there with your children exercising as well.
Right, which was fun.
Yeah.
And they did lots of sports, didn't
Mm-hmm.
they? They did kickball and baseball, well, softball probably. And inside they did even gymnastics. And we'd set up just feel like inside hockey for them. And
presidential challenges,
right,
games they did,
So it really satisfied officially the PE credit. We wanted to make sure they got fitness and exercise and skills while getting more friends.
That's right. So. Yes. We took them to regular swimming, and that was also part of a homeschool swimming as well, which fitted in really nicely.
And I think last week our podcast, one of our teenage podcasters was talking about the swim team that she was on gave her a whole batch of friends who were in public school. And so you don't have to restrict the activities you do with your kids to just homeschool possibilities. Mm-hmm. They can also be just whatever is offered in the community.
Yes. We also enjoy cycling with our children, teaching them how to ride the bikes from different stages and going locally and cycling into the next state, even if it took 20 minutes.
Oh my.
But, yeah, we really enjoy cycling. But when the weather got so hot, we had to stop for a while. One day we enjoyed cycling for almost 2 hours. Basically, we got lost in the area, so we just went around and around, and then suddenly we said, "Oh, welcome to the next state."
Oh.
But this next state was only about 5 minutes drive, but we had gotten lost. And we were so excited that we were able to cycle to the next state.
Well, that's the fun thing. You have extra time during the day, so you can get lost to the next day. We once went boating in a neighbor town big lake, and the current and wind was going against us on the way back. We were in a canoe and 2 kayaks, and the park rangers had to bring their rescue boat out to make sure we were okay because it took many more hours than expected. But we had time for that adventure, and we were all fine.
Yeah.
Improved our boating skills.
It was nice, yeah.
So would you say you found most of these things through the why, or?
Yeah, and through the homeschool email list, there was a list for just activities that was out there that came through, and you just looked and got the most reasonable things, low budgeted things, and it was the most enjoyable time to go and do those things, you know. Yeah.
I agree. It was so much fun. I mean, we started with, well, first of all, we joined the local homeschool group, support group, and they had activities, events listed in their email group. So they tried to have a get-together for an activity once a month. Some groups are more active than that. Some just communicate online. And then we signed up to library events for homeschoolers and just for kids.
Yes, the library was a great resource. Yes, and the librarian kept us all busy because then you follow the theme, what was happening for that season, or what was happening for the month, you know.
Right.
Every month there was something new, so you knew what to do with your children. I had a board set up so we would keep changing this welcome march into spring.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And I know you use Charlotte Mason, so that's flexible enough to incorporate that kind of thing from another organization, right?
Yeah.
Can you describe that a little bit more, the Charlotte Mason resources?
Well, I read a book by a lady called The Gentle Art of Learning, and she did more of the Charlotte Mason.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't actually use a Charlotte Mason textbook curriculum, but I love the concept of it, you know, that free-flowing learning, gentle learning style. And it was very nice.
That you don't have to panic and make sure you're doing everything correctly and that you're a sophisticated, trained teacher. No, you can go with what you have and explore and develop your skills and knowledge together.
One of the resources I got from that Gentle Art of Learning was teach from a whole book. And I couldn't understand what they meant by a whole book, but in the end, I did. I just took a book and we read from the beginning to the end. And within the book, you were able to pick out the English, the concept of the math, the concept of if there was any math, was there any foreign language in there. You know, you just picked up different subjects within the book that you read. They may not have had it, but then you could add your own into it. And then you had your set little curriculum that you worked with, but it's, again, you were not sort of tied to it.
Right.
I love that Gentle Art of Learning.
It's great, and it reminds me of 5 in a row. Did you use it?
Yes, I remember.
Same thing.
Simple thing.
The amount of activities you could do with each reading of the book that day sort of is mind-boggling. They'd have 20 activities available to think about. List all of the professions you can think of with your child.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I know that your kids were really into the arts, and each community is different, but we found together a lot of good local opportunities that trained them gradually. You were saying you started at home.
Yeah, one of the things I thought was very interesting was I started the foundation with them, and then I found professionals like yourself. So for music, I started recording with them, but the recorder can get complicated. And then we found you at the local performance historical performance that you were putting on for the community, and there we were able to carry further into our music studies, early music to flute and piano. And then from your program, we also found the art teacher who was very free flowing. So we had art as our foundation, but then it got to a point where we needed a one-on-one instructor, and her style was again just explore. Even if you had to paint your whole body, your hands, everything,
right.
you're enjoying
It's
art.
very fun, yeah.
Very expressive. So when you really got down to do the formal art, it was not stressful because you had enjoyed art.
Right.
You know.
And it led you into the desire for more sophisticated
Yeah,
skills,
yeah,
which
yeah.
you can go to local artists.
Mhm.
I know my daughter apprenticed with a local artist, and she learned the skills of putting on a show
Mhm.
and hanging the show, categorizing it,
Yeah.
advertising it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You really learn all these things, and you get the foundation, and then someone else just helps you move further. So the art and the music and the home economics, you learn about the food you eat, those sort of
Right.
things, the healthy foods.
Nutrition.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. We had another homeschool mom who did talks on it, and we went and we did that as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
And you yourself gave Master Gardeners talks,
Yeah,
which were very helpful for our
Mhm.
homeschool community.
yeah.
I mean, imagine knowing all about nutrition and food just out of your own kitchen,
Mhm.
and also being able to go to a local extension office to learn about how you'd grow your own garden to make that food.
Exactly. Yes.
Amazing
So as a
opportunity.
child, your children will grow up enjoying the vegetables because they have their own little plot that they're growing, and they want something.
Right.
So they have to taste it when it finally is produced. Oh, let me taste this. Before you know it, you've given them the love for the vegetables.
And I am just so thrilled that you shared that with my family. I mean, you don't have to have a formal class. Each homeschool family has things that they share with other families,
Mhm.
and just spread the knowledge and skills
Mhm.
amongst themselves, which is very valuable. And we were talking about ways to supplement public school that might be restrictive this coming fall, where your child is not meeting as often in the physical classroom. If you're not going online to find your supplemental enrichments, how do you just create them at home in your environment? You had some wonderful ways. Like you had a math store, if I remember.
Yes, we did.
That
We
was
did.
great.
Yes, that was very nice. I always felt that in order for the children to get to the next level of their learning, because you're always learning, but you wanted to introduce them to the joy of learning. So it would be very complicated to just dive straight into math. But they can see that the chair they're sitting on is to do with math, and they can see that the spoons that we use all has to do with math. So let us see how we can enjoy math first. So we
Right.
play a game, then we go to the shop, we go shopping to the math store, and you purchase things, and then maybe every quarter, we have people come to our home where we will bake things and we'll sell, because then you're using money and real life situation
right.
and all these different things going on. So then after they get a little older, then you sit down and you do the math on the paper. 1 + 1, 2 + 2, etc. So it then becomes a thing where you build up. So eventually when that cushion of the math store is taken away,
Right. I
you
see.
then have the love for, math. Before you know it, you're doing math and you haven't realized that you've done math.
Right. Very right. And I can see how that could be put into action with a lot of different things.
Mhm.
You know, you have to do this set of problems, but if you have a second to turn their way, if you're not busy with work,
Mhm.
you could set up a quick store in the corner with a basket of items that are just reserved for your time with your child. It's not, the toys and equipment in that basket aren't always available. So it symbolizes a special time with the parent, that who knows what's in that basket, whatever is fun for your family. It could be things to cook with, it could be measuring tools, it could be scientific lab, for instance, chemistry kits, you know, that we purchase at homeschool conventions or online.
Yes. One of the resources was, for example, when they're younger, again, you lay that foundation, you play with sand and water.
Right.
So as you're playing with sand and water, you take it a little further as they get older, the same sand and water, but then you begin to introduce those science kits, and they're still experimenting, but they are doing science.
Right.
The physical science. Then there's the chemistry that comes into it. Then there's the geometry and they're doing the what other science are there again?
You know, biology. With the pond studies.
Yes. But all of that starts off with that the basic. You take them on field trips. You talk about it. They play with the sand and the water, and it literally is all about. Even the gravity that you talk about, putting the water through the wheels going around, and then you link it with your field trip. You might go and see a mill or something like that.
Right, or even a science museum.
Exactly. Yeah, Whitaker Center we went to a lot. Yeah.
Right, because there's so many museums that are happy to have people show up during the day.
Yes.
They often have homeschool days at all of these different kinds of museums.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a quick question about both of our backgrounds, even though we grew up in different countries. But we both were schooled in public schools. And I just get the feeling from talking to you about the joy of learning that maybe you discovered a lot of that joy of learning when you were teaching your kids.
I did. Now, Edie, when you say public school, you mean public school as in Great Britain public school or USA public school?
Well, I grew up, you know, in a rural school, a public school in the U.S.
Okay,
but you had...
yes, I did. I did enjoy that. My schooling in Liberia was very different because you went to school in the morning and you were home by lunchtime, and you had fun things to do. And then later on, coming abroad, it was a different style again. But there was always a joy in learning.
That's
the
great.
Foundation that was there. Yeah.
Did you do a lot of home education during the afternoons, or was that just really free time that you had?
You had someone who would come and help you, tutor you to get your schoolwork done.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah.
And as soon as you got that done, then you ran off to go
Right.
play.
Go play, exactly. Well, that's another subject for another day.
Yeah.
But I think it's really clear that there are different community resources that you can make use of that are going to be so different in each location. But even if you were in a remote location in New Mexico, we talked to a homeschool family that had few resources. Really all you need is your own family to start to explore and be socialized just out of your own family. And then anyone who's a family friend that you can get together with and learn from.
I can tell you a fun little story. When I was growing up, everybody in the whole nation, we all learned from a particular primer called SO Go. That's featured in my book as well.
Oh, okay.
And you learn the alphabets. So in the alphabets, you got one letter, and then you put the two letters together, and the two letters with the diphthong and the blends and whatnot. So you got the S and O, and then that makes so, etc. So everyone knows, has grown up memorizing this. Yeah.
Right.
Then you have a situation whereby you're in the village and that's it. So you've come up to that primary level and you enjoyed it. But I remember my father had a book. I loved the book so much. It was a very big book, like a coffee table sort of book. And I poured myself over that book. I did not know all the words from it, but I remember looking at the S and the A and the B and whatnot, trying to figure out how it's supposed to go, because I was just picking out words at that point. I didn't read the whole thing, but I looked through the book over and over. I loved the pictures, and I said, one of these days I will go to this country.
Oh, that's interesting. Where is the book from? England?
Yes, book was from England. Yes,
and then you did.
Yeah, and my mom said, if you go there, those countries, all the people, their hair is white and the sun never shines. But that was not going to stop me. I was going to go there, and I loved that sort of book. Even though I couldn't read it, I could figure out the words, but the pictures were beautiful.
Yes. And that's interesting about lots of different resources. There's something engaging in them, whether it be a novel or a physical thing for kids who are very kinetic, playing with the sand. There's something that engages you early.
Just see pictures. You make your own stories.
Right.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling we could talk all afternoon, which has been really fun. But we'll sum up by thank you so much for joining us with this podcast. And if you liked what you heard, there are links in the show notes to our website, Facebook page, and YouTube. Thank you so much, and thank you, Marann.
Thank you, Edie.